Hey, good morning, all. Tuesday, December 7th, the Vote Common Good podcast, political edition. And
Doug Pagitt is back.
He's back.
Hey, everybody. Should introduce myself. My name is Doug Pagitt. I work with Vote Common Good, and I'm occasionally on this podcast when I'm not busy doing other things. So nice to be back. Rob, Dan, thanks for holding down the fort in such honorable fashion over all these months. Nice job.
We tried real hard.
So I'm in Minneapolis, where it's snowing outside, and it was frigid yesterday. Frigid, like 5 degrees, wind chill, just an icy mess. And then today, snowing. Winter has come in December in Minneapolis. Dan Dietrich in South Bend, Indiana, and Robb Ryerse hidden away somewhere outside of Fayetteville, Arkansas. Dan, how you were mentioning it's also
brutally cold. Yeah, it's so cold. And I'm in this little studio off the garage, and it's not real well insulated. So I got space heaters going. I was wearing my winter coat in here a minute ago.
Your carbon footprint is through the roof today. You're just burning coal.
Yep.
Sitting in there. Hey, Rob.
Yeah. Well, I'm struggling with technology this morning and frustrated with that, as you both know. But
had to go to Plan C, like Plan
it was
A and B
it was 75 degrees on Sunday. And 20 degrees this morning walking Whimsy to school. So that's life in Arkansas. So it's a little cold, but we're doing well.
Hey, it's Ride Week here on the Vote Common Good podcast, where every day we're going to reflect on what we learned and experienced through the cross-country ride when we rode from Southern California to Northern Florida across the southern border of the U.S. and Mexico and along the coast. So we're going to talk about that and the political implications of that, but other political things going on. And Rob, you saying that you have some technology frustrations. You know what I have a little frustration with right now?
Joe Biden?
COVID responses. If we need to blame that on the administration, I'm willing to, because there's all this attention about, look, the Omicron virus, our variant is out. Delta is still raging, 100,000 cases a day. This weekend, I had a real bad head cold after traveling. Thought it's the wise thing to go get a COVID test. You know, in the Minneapolis area, the 16th largest metropolitan area in the United States of America, you basically can't get a COVID test on the weekends. They all close. CVS, Target, Cub Foods, our grocery store line, Walgreens. Yeah, we're not open on weekends. So I'm hunting around. You know where I finally had to go? I had to go to the airport and pay $100.
Oh my gosh.
To get a COVID test, along with the people who have to pay $100 to travel to get their COVID test. Had to go to the airport. No COVID tests available in the greater Minneapolis, St. Paul area on the weekends. Do you think a pandemic cares what day it is? Do you think that people who might say to themselves, "Oh, I could have COVID. Maybe I should get a test. Maybe a day I would do that is the day that's not part of the typical work week." The COVID testing places are open 9 to 4 Monday through Friday. The idea that we're taking this seriously in this state, in this country, and Minnesota is one of 4 states that's on a rise. It's named in all of the peak states. Like I'm living in this epicenter of a surge. Can't get a COVID test on the weekends.
Yeah.
Then this morning, I spent an hour trying to set up my booster, my Pfizer booster. No appointments available. Finally find one on December 22nd. And you click on it, and it says no times available that day. Can't get a booster. So I post this on social media. Now, a few people have texted me and sent me private messages saying, well, I know of one clinic up in North Minneapolis. They seem to always have it. You can just walk in. This is just, I mean, I know that for a lot of people, they're done with COVID, and we all talk about COVID in the past tense. We talk about like during the pandemic, this happened as if, or in the middle of the pandemic, meaning we know the beginning and the end, and there was a middle and it's not now. So if COVID and the response of COVID nationally is going to be part of our political conversation next November and the following 2 Novembers, this is not going well. When someone, I don't know about you guys, if you're boosted or if you had an easy time finding it, maybe other listeners in other places, I'd love to hear your comments if you have trouble getting this, because this is just something else. And I am literally someone who has great access to technology. I could drive pretty much anywhere on Saturday in the metropolitan area. My day was free to do it. I mean, I spent time doing nothing else but 3 hours of hunting and driving around, including going to emergency urgent cares to be told, yeah, we don't do tests here. After the person on the phone told me that they do tests there. So it was just madness. And I could actually spend time and energy doing that. And I couldn't come up with one without spending an exorbitant amount of money, because I had other things going on Saturday night and Sunday and Monday that I really wanted to do and would have felt like I can't do them being around certain people if I didn't have a COVID test. So this is a real problem. I'm just saying.
Over the counter COVID tests available?
All sold out everywhere. Yeah. And in fact, the guy at CVS goes, oh man, I haven't had these things. I haven't had them in weeks. I'm hoping to get some in next Wednesday, but everyone is sold out. And then my neighbor across the street, I was lamenting about this, and he goes, I got 6 of them, man. I should have just said something. He's a COVID test.
He's hoarding them.
He's hoarding them. He's got 6 of them.
But yeah, it's like almost 2 years into this pandemic. Everyone should be able to get a test anytime they need one. It's crazy to me that we can't.
How
like the other day,
a thing?
Yeah, my kids were exposed and had to stay home until they got a negative test result. We couldn't get a rapid test. They were all sold out everywhere. We had to wait for an appointment. And so we had to wait a couple days for the appointment. And then you have to wait 4 days till they finally they missed a week of school just before we could be told, oh, they don't have COVID. You're fine.
I mean, this feels like a year and a half ago when it was just scarcity and incompetence and a system that can't respond to this. I truly do not understand why they can't make enough tests, why testing centers aren't open on the weekends. I'm not talking about in the middle of the night. 2 p.m. on Saturday in the Minneapolis area, no tests available short of the airport. And then when I went to the airport, they have free tests at the airport, the PCI test or PC something, the one that takes 4 days to get back. The line was 300 people long. Like it was, it was like a rock concert. Like it went in the parking garage. Like it was stretched as far as you could see. That was just to get up and check in and try to get a free test. And then you wouldn't get it back for 3 to 4 days. So it wouldn't have done me any good for the things that I needed it for over the weekend, so that I could make sure that people were safe while my nose is running like crazy. And turns out I was negative. Yep. Thank you for asking. I was negative.
Well, I mean, if you pause for a breath, Doug, we probably will.
Oh, I'm not pausing for a breath. I am on this.
It's been a couple of months since you've been on the podcast.
He has not been able to rant for a while. He's got a lot stored up.
The 3 people trapped in an RV with me listening to me rant like this, they're like, oh, yeah, let this guy get back on the podcast. So anyway, okay, we won't complain about COVID anymore today, unless something reminds me of it. Let's talk about immigration, unless you have anything else on this nonsense of mishandling of the COVID testing and booster response.
It's so frustrating because it's so unnecessary.
Yeah.
And there are, other countries around the world that are doing it well, and there's just no reason why we shouldn't be, other than, if we did, then, Democrats could get some political clout out of it, and Republicans don't want that to happen. It's so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I live in a democratically run state politically, and there's no reason why this state is not totally geared up to be responding to this. There's no one standing in our way. This isn't. So I don't know truly what the issue is, because it has now all of the force of the federal and state government to try to be addressing this. And this is the way it felt a year ago and a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I can't get a test and I can't get a vaccine in Minneapolis. It's so come on. That is just too much. All right. Well, Rob, let's talk about more pleasant things. Immigration. We did this bike ride around immigration, trying to raise awareness. And for people that wonder why Vote Common Good, a group that's trying to advocate for voters to make the common good their voting criteria and stop electing people like Donald Trump as to public office, why would we care about immigration? And the answer is pretty straightforward, in the sense that immigration is going to be a major voting topic in 2022 and in 2024. And Rob, I'd love for you to mention this article that you sent over that had a headline that I thought was really, really poignant to this point. But the messaging around immigration, the content around immigration, is totally owned by anti-immigrant and restricted immigration narratives coming from the Republican Party, and it's going to create a real chasm for people who want to care about immigration and want immigration to be something that pulls voters from voting for people like Donald Trump to voting for people that would stop people like Donald Trump. And that's why we're trying to advocate for it, because we want to join the very small chorus of people who are talking about immigration in ways that are not build a wall, keep people out, restrict immigration, and be concerned about migrants.
That's right. And, one of the things that we found was in 2020, when there were people who were previous Trump supporters who were moving away from Donald Trump. And, there was a lot of anecdotal stories about that, a lot of hope that would happen in mass. It didn't happen nearly in mass as we wanted. But what we found was, one of the most critical issues to people who were in the midst of some kind of political deconstruction, some kind of pulling away from their longtime loyalty to the Republican Party, or at least their loyalty to Donald Trump, was the issue of kids in cages.
Yeah.
There was something about that was like, whoa. Okay, the wall thing, I didn't take all that seriously. Come on, it's a nice little chant, but no, not taking that seriously. Under asylum seekers, all of that feels real complicated. And, I don't really want border agents knifing water bottles out in the middle of the desert so that, people can't drink them. But that doesn't happen that often. But kids in cages, that was a critical issue that actually moved people in how they voted. And so, this is what we've learned at Vote Common Good is that this is one of those issues that, we talk a lot about abortion, and certainly we're going to continue to as states make crazy laws, and now Roe v. Wade is under assault at the Supreme Court. People talk about taxes and they talk about the economy, and all of those issues are important. But immigration was an issue that actually moved voters in 2016 towards Donald Trump, and with the Build the Wall folks, and then in 2020 away from Donald Trump, with people that thought kids in cages was too far. And and it's really fascinating now to see Democrats not capitalizing on that in terms of national messaging, that this is an issue that can actually sway people, that can move people. And in terms of both policy and messaging, both the policy, the governing of it, and the politics of it, the messaging of it, this is an issue that Democrats seem to be ignoring, and it could be a winning issue for them if they did the right thing and said the right thing about immigration.
Yeah, I'm with you. And look, the reason it's a powerful issue for those who wonder is because it's one of the places where people want to vote for Democrats can speak about the morality of our policies. So often on the politically left, we talk about our rights. Nothing wrong with that. It's important. We talk about systemic systems and rights. On the political right, especially the fringy right, they tend to talk about things in terms of right and wrong and morality. And this is just the general tone of how people are approached and how they're cultured up in their thinking about politics. And it's often referred to as the culture wars, right? So you hear politicians or pundits say, look, politicians on the right are going to be all about the culture wars. And when you look into what they mean by culture wars, they mean issues that people think are about morality.
Yep.
And then they say, but Democrats or people on the left, they're going to want to talk about policies. They're going to want to talk about what did we actually do. So that's about systemic change and about utilizing the structures of the federal government to protect that which should be protected in the rights. That's a problem, first of all. I mean, we need to connect. If you sort of have a right brain and left brain there, you need that connection between the right and the left brain. And any politician or any political party that could connect both of those will really do well.
Yes.
But this is where politicians on the left could be talking about the morality of our immigration policies. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean the charity. So often what we end up going to when you're on the left is like, well, these people are hurting, they're struggling, they're in a bad way, we need to help them. The charity approach. Now, look, there's a lot of people who need a lot of charity. There's a lot of people who need a lot of support and help that way. There's nothing wrong with that. But charity doesn't motivate the way morality and rightness motivates. Like, what is the right thing to do? Let's do this because it's the good, right thing. Not just it's the empathic thing, or it's the sympathetic thing, or it's the charitable thing. When people will say like, well, how would you feel if you were trapped in that situation? Well, that's a call to empathy, as opposed to what we're doing to these people is just wrong. We should do the right thing. It's difficult for people on the political left to use that kind of language, where we all know that on the right, they use that language for everything, right? They'll talk about the immorality of taxes. They'll talk about the immorality of government regulations. Like, everything gets framed in the terms of right and wrong and morality. And immigration is one of the issues that we could actually help people see differently, talk about differently, and really claim. Yeah. But Democrats are loath to do it. They're nervous about it because the one thing we heard, Rob, as we traveled all across the country, is people would say that there were two things that were consistent across the board. One is our immigration system is a convoluted, complicated mess. It's really hard to understand. And the border is safe. Living on the borderlands is safe. We don't have a scourge of people. That's not happening. People on both sides of the political aisle say both of those things. Hardcore Trump supporters along the border said to us regularly, would you please tell people in the rest of the country that the borderlands are safe? It's not what they're seeing on the news, having nothing to do with their own political views or even how they feel about the wall. They're just saying it's safe to be here. So a really important point. And we like to caveat, the border is safe unless you're an immigrant. And then it's a very dangerous place because of the risk that we put them in. But the other thing that they all say is it's complicated. Now, Democrats like to be in situations where things are complicated, right? Democrats tend to complicate things when they answer questions. You hear a politician, a Democratic politician, and I like this about Democrats. Someone will say, well, what do you think about this topic? And they'll say, it's actually quite complicated. It's quite complex. Let me tell you about the complexity of it and why I've come down the way I am. You ask a person on the right about the same topic, and they'll just give you a definitive answer about what they think about it, right? And they'll act like it's as simple as 6 words, So I like it that it's complicated. But when Democratic politicians get into this complicated thing of immigration, they kind of throw their hands up and say, I just don't know what we could do.
Yeah. And I think too, Doug, that, that point about how complicated it is, it doesn't just have political implications. It's got personal implications that the complication has helped fuel the problems we have at the border, because in the same way that water finds the path of least resistance when it flows, people who are migrating find the path of least resistance. And what's the easiest way to navigate this? How do we get there the easiest, safest, simplest way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And to think that paying a coyote $10,000 or trying to cross a desert is the path of least resistance when compared to the legal, do it the right way kind of approach. That's really shocking and really says something about how complicated the system is when it's more advantageous to risk your life crossing a desert instead of going through the system the way it's set up.
Yeah, that is well said. Hey, Dan, might this be a good point for us to play our little video that we put together that captures some of this?
Yeah, let's play it. This is 3 lessons we learned from the ride.
Produced by...
Those of us on the We the People ride, we've ridden our bikes the entire length of the United States-Mexico border, 1,700 miles from California to the coast of Texas. We're musicians, faith leaders, pastors, activists, regular old people, actors, all kinds of us who are thinking about what do we need to know about life on our U.S.-Mexico border. We've learned a few things. One lesson that we learned is that the U.S.-Mexico border is safe on both sides.
Yes, life here on the border, especially this amazing city, the city of Douglas, and the city of Opreta, Sonora, Mexico, a very peaceful place.
It's a wonderful community, it's so quiet. It's just like, it's a ghost town, but it's not, because it's very, very active.
I know El Paso is very safe. It's a very safe place to live.
I know the impression that many people have throughout the country is that it's lawless, that there's shootings going on, that there's all kinds of crime. Nothing could be further from the truth.
It's a stereotype that everybody in Mexico is crook. Yes.
Mexico's not what people make it look like, like whether the government, like you get killed out there if you go there. That's what the first thing people think.
Media I've seen has been covering as kind of dangerous.
I tell them, okay, you're gonna come down, go to the church, but then we're gonna go to Mexico. Is it safe? Could I go? Would I be in any trouble at all? No, you won't. Not at all.
It's really not like that, It's just it's a lot of love out here. People don't see that no more,
There's all this slander about. We get a lot of tourists down here from all over the U.S. for the winter time.
The one that the Gordon Ramsay show where he comes in and flips everything upside down to save it to make sure.
I feel maybe people should experience things to know more about them. Maybe come check it out and see how safe it really is.
Now, that's not what you always hear from people in the media and certainly from some politicians. They dredge up a whole lot of fear to make people feel like the border is a war zone. The second lesson that we've learned is it's not entirely safe if you're a migrant. That the policies of the United States government put migrants in such great risk. And even though some people want to say that migrants are the ones we're to be afraid of, the migrants who are coming into our country are vulnerable, and traveling into our country is not safe for so many of the men, women, and children who choose to enter this country.
Salí de mi país porque there's not enough food, there's dangers for death, danger for rape, danger for kidnapping for my child, and I could not protect them. And that, not only that, but we didn't have enough food. It didn't matter how long I worked, not enough food.
El coyote nos trajo en trailers.
Smuggler gets them into cattle semi-truck. Around 200 to 300 people, pregnant women, children, all together. And they're allowed 1 bottle of water and 1 Pedialyte, but no food.
Nosotros solo, ellos dicen pues para los coyotes dicen que cuando nos traen.
No, they trick us. The smugglers trick us, and after they take our money, They put us on these cattle semi-trucks, and they don't feed us, and they don't allow us to shower, and it takes almost over 30 days to get here.
Me quedo triste. Cuando me dejaba mi niña.
¿Mande?
Cuando me dejó mi niña allá en Guatemala, estoy triste. Yo quiero luchar por mis niños. Yo no quiero perder mi vida, mis hijos. Por eso yo
I don't want my children to lose their lives. I don't want my children to get raped. I don't want my children to get kidnapped. I don't want my children to get killed. And I rather risk my own life so I can save theirs.
Es la mano de Dios sobre nosotros. Él nos cuidó. Él siempre ha estado con nosotros. Dios nunca nos ha dejado.
It's the hand of God that has protected us. It's the hand of God that has protected our children because we should have been dead.
Yo quiero porque ya no quiero regresar. Porque
And I am praying that God will open the doors for us, for our children, because I cannot go back to Guatemala. And I want to have the opportunity to claim asylum.
Esto que abra las puertas.
The third lesson is that it's nonprofit groups that are meeting the needs of people along the border. Our federal policies come up far short of where they should be. And it's nonprofit, often faith-based groups that have to step in and fill the gap and care for people.
Oh, I hope that you can just stay and watch the process.
We will.
Because this is
it.
what it's all about. Coming. Good morning.
Am I turning this thing?
Yes, you are. So in spring of 19, our county experienced a surge. And at that time, Border Patrol was at capacity and didn't know really where to leave those people. And so it was creating a problem within the community. Border Patrol then reached out to all the pastors in our area. Out of that, one pastor in particular said, I think we can do this better. And his name was Pastor Sean Young, and he is with City Church.
What I saw underneath the bridge and the amount of people underneath the bridge, I mean, I never imagined seeing anything like that in Del Rio, you know, working with the immigrants for the last couple of years. That was an eye-opener. In this area, we've been seeing, if memory serves me right, 25 to 30,000 a month crossing the Del Rio sector. We haven't had a place to overnight. So they'll usually just wait at the airport, or they'll wait at the bus station overnight. You know, if it's a vulnerable mom with a baby, and you know, we'll obviously try to get her kind of placed if possible. Again, we're just so small, and we just don't have the manpower ourselves, and we would definitely need buy-in from other entities and government entities to make that work.
And again, I just want to emphasize, this is you and Tiffany and a group of volunteers doing all of this work on behalf of migrants and in coordination with other federal agencies to stand in the gap and make all that work.
It goes back to the fact that we are faith-based, and helping others is a big part of what we do. And so when you're coming from that vantage point, it's really not that political. It's just what needs to be done.
We're very glad for the work of the Valverde Humanitarian Coalition. It's crucial work, but it's work that should be carried on in partnership with the federal government and paid for by the federal government. It doesn't make sense that small nonprofit groups like this have to carry all of this burden to care for people. It just rubs us the wrong way, and we think that there's a better way for us to move forward in our public policy and in how we spend our money along the U.S.-Mexico border.
Really a great piece, Dan. Nice job on that work.
Thank you.
If you're only listening to the podcast, you should head over to the Vote Common Good page and watch the video of that, because it really captures it. You see the faces and the people in the context. And we'll talk more about what faith groups are doing tomorrow. But this larger political question, Rob, you know, this is the situation that we're in, right? Yeah, it's complicated, it's complex. There's a lot of moving parts, and that causes politicians to get really nervous, especially because when you talk about people that are not yet in the United States, so migrants that are looking to come into the United States as asylum seekers or on a visa to be in the country to work or to visit, they're not the constituency yet of anyone in the United States. And one of the real questions is, who's going to advocate on behalf of those that don't have representation yet in the U.S. government? Because migrants who are not yet in the country don't have representatives. That was part of the diabolical genius of the Remain in Mexico program, was it put those people outside of the United States so that they're not in the United States and therefore couldn't be claimed by any of the representatives as if they're representing those people. That, I think it's a criminal law that we have. It's got to be changed. I don't totally understand the legality of why the Biden administration stopped the Remain in Mexico and then was forced to put it back into place by a judge's order. That's all complicated in a way that I can't seem to comprehend or understand. But even as of today, the Remain in Mexico process is back in place all along the U.S. border, meaning they can tell asylum seekers that they have to stay in Mexico.
So I think one of the things that I've learned through the work with Vote Common Good that I don't think I had vocabulary for an understanding of the nuance of previously, and that is, there's kind of this mindset that there are immigrants that are coming here to work, to take our jobs, blah, 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 that kind of stuff. And that's what immigration is. And, the Remain in Mexico policy sounds like, well, yeah, we don't want them to come here. We would want them to remain in Mexico. But there is, in fact, a distinction between people who are migrating for work purposes or or whatever that might be, and those who are asylum seekers, right? And there is a large percentage of folks that are coming to the United States seeking asylum, and because of violence, because of political persecution, for all sorts of different reasons, coming from Haiti, coming from Africa, coming from South America. And to when you are an asylum seeker, there is no, you don't send a letter, you don't send an email, you don't go to a website and fill out a form. The way you seek asylum is you get your feet on the ground in the country where you are seeking asylum, and you declare, I am seeking asylum here, and that triggers a process. But you have to get into the country first. That's why, you think about, the old Russian spy movies and that kind of thing. The spies had to, someone who was defecting had to figure out a way to get here. Defection is just asylum seeking. And you can't do that until you get here. So what the Remain in Mexico policy does, it actually takes people that are fleeing persecution, fleeing violent situations, fleeing all sorts of problems, and they are seeking asylum in the country that says, hey, we welcome people from all over the world. And to the process legally to get asylum is they've got to get their feet on the ground in the U.S. And the Remain in Mexico policy blunts that from happening, blocks that from happening, keeps them from actually being able to do what they came here to do, which is to seek asylum.
That's right. And that's what it was designed to do. That's why the Trump administration put it into place. It violates international law. There's international laws about asylum seekers that are upheld by all countries that follow international laws. The United States now is not following international law. Again, the Biden administration reversed this policy. A judge has made them put it back into place because apparently some technicalities about how it was reversed were not correct. And one of the frustrations of advocates around immigration is that the Biden administration is not doing enough in a timely enough fashion to remedy this situation. They're basically saying, well, what do you need to do to reverse the Remain in Mexico process, and do that thing? Do whatever it is that you have to do. Yeah, let's get that thing done. And it's not getting done. And that's extremely frustrating. And to your point, it is not just political. It has great implications. We were in asylum camps in Mexico. We were in a tent city in Reynosa where you met those two women. If you heard those voices or saw those faces on the video that were telling us their story, they're living in a tent city in Reynosa, Mexico, across the border from McAllen, Texas. And they're alone, just them and their children now with, 5,000 people living in a little tent encampment. And they shouldn't be there. Look, if the United States wants to tell these people, you do not qualify for asylum, then tell them that. Adjudicate their case and give them an answer. And if we think it's going to take too long to adjudicate all these cases, then what we ought to do is increase the supply of asylum judges.
Yes.
If this is a supply and demand issue, as so many people like to think about all of our issues, and the demand is so high for asylum cases to be adjudicated, then we should increase the supply of people who are adjudicating these cases.
Yes.
Using instead it's going the other way. One of the things the
Yes.
Trump administration did is they reduced the number of asylum judges. That's caused a huge backlog. And one of the things that Biden administration has not yet done is to increase the number of asylum judges and to streamline an entirely different process to deal with this. And I'll just say, here's the other thing that's happening. There's a lot of people who want to come into the United States. We all know that. Now, we can handle a whole lot more people than we take in. Our current visa limits are the lowest in 150 years. They need to be increased dramatically. And I'm talking about 1 million people or more a year need to be allowed in. Right now, it's a teeny number of people that come in under all classifications. There's 64 different visa classifications. Then there's asylum, then there's refugee statuses. There's all these various statuses that are very complicated and very expensive for someone to figure out. So it's convoluted. But the whole overall number of people that we allow into the United States to work or to seek asylum or to visit or to move here is far too small. It needs to increase by millions. I know that sounds crazy, and people say, like, we can't take millions of people. Just do the math for a minute. We have 350 million people in the United States. If we were to take in 1 million immigrants, that's 1/350th of our U.S. population. That's not going to be a problem. In fact, in light of a declining birth rate, it would keep us even as a population if we were to increase the number of migrants. So maybe it's about who these people are and what they look like and where they're from, and not simply about the number of people. So we need to look at that very deep question. But what's happening is all of these people, whether you're an asylum seeker, somebody looking for a job, someone looking for permanent residency, someone coming to live with a family, they're all coming through the same pipeline. They're all walking up to the same borders. We don't even have this thing sorted in a way that would make sense for people. It's like we have one of those catch-all drawers in the kitchen where you just put all the stuff that doesn't have another place, and you go in there looking for a key to your garage because, say, last night you wanted to add a new garage controller to open your garage door, and instead you mistakenly cleared out all the garage door openers and then shut the garage door with the button on the inside and realized that the side door to the garage is locked. And then you said to yourself, I don't have a key to the side garage door. Let's just imagine that happened to someone. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's say that
who could that happen?
Perhaps that was a situation that could befall otherwise, a fairly functional human being. And you start digging through that catch-all drawer to try to find that one key that might open that side garage door. It's so frustrating when you look at just this, like there's tape and there's scissors and what is that thing? And I don't even know, why is there a magnifying glass in here? We haven't used a magnifying glass. What are we, Sherlock Holmes? Like all this stuff is going on in there, right? It's all messed up. What we've done with our immigration process is put all of these people into one place. And then people say, well, they're smugglers. They're smuggling in drugs or weapons or criminals in. Well, if we had more visas being given legally, if we adjudicated asylum seekers more quickly, we would be able to clear out the system, have people who have legal documentation and legal reasons to be here to happen easily and quickly and verifiably. Then you could deal with the people who are trying to get in without good reason and without any of those credentials. So the answer to our immigration policy is more resources into the process, more money spent on the process and less money spent on the security. because we only need the security because we're not spending money on the process. So every politician, I hope, that talks about this will say the answer to this is more investment in the legal process so that we don't have to put all the burden on security. Because the one thing we know about security is it doesn't work well enough. What would work is to have a cleaner process that people could be a part of. And I don't hear anyone talking about this nearly enough. Like, I don't know who the national representative is, the national person, whether that's an elected representative or a person of influence, who's out talking about the border process itself, because that's where so much of this rests. There's a lot of complex immigration questions, like what do we do with DACA recipients, people who came here as young children? What do we do with people that are on a temporary permanent status and we need to increase them? But those are all dealing with people already in the country. The additional question, in some ways the larger, more complex question, is what about the people who are not yet in the country? Increase the number of visas that are given, put much more money into processing it, and create a way to streamline the different kinds of migration and the different kinds of immigration so that we know who's coming in and how they're coming in, and more people can come in more easily. That would be the solution to it all.
Our policy and process has created the bottleneck, that bottleneck has produced inhumane and insecure situations. And if we eliminate the bottleneck through different policies and processes, and not even different, but I mean just more robust, it would make all the difference. Doug, it's one of those things that, like, I mean, this sounds so cliche, or kind of, I don't know, but like generosity, like
yeah,
like that's not a bad thing. Like if we are more generous, that tends to make things better. And a more generous border policy makes everything better for everybody.
So I was in Mexico after we did our ride. I went to Mexico for vacation, down to Cancun. There's a presumption as a U.S. citizen that you can go into Mexico.
Yeah.
They have a border, but the presumption is that you can cross the border. We have a border with Mexico, and the presumption is that a Mexican doesn't get to come to the United States. Just to boil it all down that straightforward, our country has a presumption of entering Mexico for our citizens. Citizens of Mexico or Guatemala or Honduras or El Salvador, or Nicaragua or Honduras do not have the presumption of entering the United States. So if we're going to have that as our standard, that we have a closed door border, they all have an open door border, we have to ask some questions about why that is, and there might be good answers for that. But if we're going to have a closed door border policy, what is the mechanism by which that door opens? And currently, that mechanism is broken. If we were to fix the mechanism for opening that door, so we know who's coming in, how they're coming in, how they're being tracked, that's how we move forward. Now, people will say, and they've said this to me during this whole process we were on, well, how much money is all that going to cost? The border wall that has been built over the last 30 years, some of it reinforced by the Trump administration and heralded, but not much of it really built by the Trump administration, a lot of it increased, or border wall that existed torn down, the 10-foot and 17-foot wall torn down so that 30-foot wall could be installed. And the reason they went from 10 and 17 feet to 30 feet is because they determined that 30-foot fall is the fatal height. So if you fall from 30 feet, you're likely to die or not be able to walk. That's why they increased the height of the wall. Think about that for a minute. Punishment and death as a means of deterrence. But this wall that was built, whether it was replacement wall of 30 feet high, all across our southern border, costs $19 million a mile. $19 million for every mile. What if you built 100 miles? $190 million. No, $1.9 billion. I've lost track of the numbers. What if you built 500 miles? What if you built 1,000 miles? And then it costs money to upkeep over and over. And then you have to pay Border Patrol to patrol the wall because they know that the wall itself doesn't stop people, it slows them down. So what you're doing is slowing down immigration across the wall so that Border Patrol can engage. So now you have to employ a bunch of Border Patrol. If you took that same money for installation, upkeep, and human resources on the wall and spent that on the process for people to legally come in, to track people when they legally come in, to stay in touch with them when they come in, and those people that come in then pay taxes in the United States, that's an income generator that would not spend anywhere near as much of the money as is being spent on security. So it's not a question of can or should we afford it? It's a question of where will we spend the money on the border and the border process, on security or on the process of allowing people to legally enter the country, stay in the country for a determined amount of times and go home. Here's the other thing, Rob, that we learned that was shocking to me. The great majority of people that were coming into the country that we met, short of the asylum seekers who were needing to get out of their country, but the other migrants who were having to climb over the wall because there were no visas being offered for working in the United States, they didn't want to stay in the U.S. They didn't want to be permanent residents. Some of them are like, you know what I want to do? I want to come work for 5 or 6, 7 years, and then I can return home. Or I want to come back and be a seasonal worker. I want to move across this border like we used to, and like you do within the states in the United States, or with what we do in the states in Mexico or in Guatemala, that you move around because you're a worker. These are people that want to come here and contribute to the economy, not take from it.
Yep. As humanity has done for its entire existence of like,
well played.
You move around and, follow the jobs. So, Doug, there was I think you alluded to this earlier. There was a really stunning headline yesterday that Donald Trump might have lost the presidency, but he won the immigration war. And there's a lot that's going on. There's I think we have I think we think the very best of the Biden administration and what their intentions are, and are frustrated that things haven't changed. But in terms of the framing of how are we going to pay for it, the whole understanding of what immigration is all about, this has all been framed and been the stage has been set by the Trump administration and their understanding of things, and frankly, Democrats haven't done nearly enough to fight back on this issue. Yeah. And so this is a kind of a doomsday, final, that this is one, it's completed, it's over. My hope is that's not the case, and that this can be, reframed, and that this whole issue can be reworked in a much more positive way. But man, if the legacy of Donald Trump is, actually that his view of immigration and his view of other people entering the country, all of that, if that sticks in terms of what the lasting view of immigration is in our society, that's a sad thing.
That's a sad thing. Well, there's a lot of political implications. We're going to be working on these. We're going to be sharing the story across the country in 2022 and 2023 and 2024, because we know that there's a lot of people who care about this issue, and people who might otherwise vote for Republicans, but they're just not comfortable with where they are in immigration. If we can help them see that this is a top line issue, not a secondary or tertiary issue, that can be a significant reason to help people who want to make the kind of changes in their behavior of voting that we're hoping that they're going to make. So I hope you all support us in that work and join us in that work as we do it in the places where we're going to be doing it. And politics has a local element all the time, even when it's policies and processes and actions that are on our southern border, which I will just say this, it can feel like it's a long way away. And I live in a border state, but on the northern border in Minnesota. So the southern border feels like a really different place than here and feels very distant and alien in some ways. And I've had the privilege of going there and being there and experiencing it. That changes a lot. If there's the kind of thing that you want to experience, we're going to be taking the opportunity to bring people down to that border so they can see it and experience it and meet the people and know what's going on themselves. So that's also something that we're going to be doing, because we know that issues of immigration and the border can seem like it's just so far from your daily life and not something we should be thinking about. But it's just morally wrong to treat people the way that we do by our policies. And this is a policy that we can change and should change.
Yep.
Anything else, Rob?
No, I'm so happy that that you did that bike ride and that the Ryerse clan got to participate in it as well. And
Sure
this is
did.
so important. We've got to keep pushing this issue, not just because of the political implications, because it's a winning one for Democrats, but because of, as you've mentioned, the morality of it. These are human beings who need to be treated with, respect and dignity.
Right. There's this old saying that budgets are moral documents. That's true. And policies are moral documents too. And this one's on the wrong side of goodness and rightness. And we should change that. All right, Dan, anything else from you?
Nope. Great show.
All right, we're going to talk about faith communities and how they engage in it. Some of the people you saw in that video or heard their voices. We're going to be talking about that kind of thing, because as it turns out, there are people doing the right best they can in a very difficult and bad situation, and we're going to talk a bit about those tomorrow. So we'll see you and talk with you tomorrow.